I'm your host, Ramananda Sengupta. Today's roundtable is the first of a series we are planning on what we can expect from India and the US in terms of trade and technology in both civilian and military domains under President Trump's second term at the White House. Joining me today, on my right, we have Mr. Sanjay Kumar, a former senior director of the US CHIPS Program Office, who has also held senior leadership roles at tech majors like Meta, Intel, Broadcom, and NXP. On his right, we have Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, former Army commander of the Army Training Command and a UPSC member. He's a highly decorated soldier who has been consistently championing the need to develop indigenous high-tech in the military domain. And facing me is Mr. Jaijit Bhattacharya, a globally renowned expert in technology-driven governance and societal transformation, and the founder-president for the Center for Digital Economy Policy Research, and has several best-selling books on e-governance and technology. I hope I got that part right. Okay, so let me start with Mr. Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya, if we've been talking about technology collaboration with the US for a long, long time now. Under Trump, what would you say are the main sort of, I won't say challenges, but expectations that India has, and how valid are those expectations?
So there will be technologies that will be shared, that there will be ecosystems that will be enabled within India, semiconductors being a great example, pharmaceuticals being another example. If you look at US, just like the rest of the world, it's APIs and KSMs, KSMs is key starting materials in pharmaceutical, it's active product ingredients in pharmaceuticals. Most of them come from China. So tomorrow, if there is a strategic situation, then all that China has to do is cut off the supply of these KSMs and APIs, and the health of the US will come down to its knees. And so you don't need to really fire a shot. You can bring down the US population by just doing that. And therefore, supply chain resilience becomes critical. India plays a very important role in that supply chain resilience. Unfortunately, if I look at pharmaceuticals itself, India itself is dependent on China. So the point is for US and India and the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework to work towards an arrangement and an ecosystem wherein the supply chain starts falling into these trusted entities as well. There's no such word as trusted entities, so I'm cooking it up, as I say, but trusted from a US perspective. So I think every conversation we're having, it's more from a US perspective than what India needs. Now, therefore, what starts getting hit for India is H-1B visas. Out of the total of roughly 900 billion trade that we do, half of it is in services. A bulk of that is with US. Now, and a bulk of that again is based on H-1B visas. Obviously, we have the global the capability centers coming up in India in a big way, but still sending people over to the shores of US and doing development, and that being part of the GNP of India is a critical part of India's economy. With compromises coming out in issuing the H-1B visas, which is important for people to go to US and do the development, it will have a significant impact on India, both in terms of economic impact as well as technological impact, because if you're not exposed to the cutting edge of what's happening in US, you can't come back and replicate it. So just like what happened in World War I and World War II, we had great exposure. Large population of India went to Europe, fought there, fought the battles, got a lot of exposure. They came back, and that helped change the society over here, and eventually led to the British also leaving. So that exchange is important, and that might get threatened under the current administration. So there are pros and there are cons, and we have heard mutterings around the cutting edge F-35 to be given, and General Shukla will be able to talk more deeply on that aspect. But from a tech perspective, the fact that he's even muttering such technologies which are supposed to be cutting edge to be given to India, I think that's a phenomenal change that has happened. So I hope that continues, but we need to keep in mind that there will be a check and balance, because it will always be America first.
Let me come to you, General Shukla. That when Prime Minister Modi went to the US just some time back, and there was a lot of discussion on, particularly defense. We had something that compact, and it's a long acronym and stuff
Compact,
like that.
Trust, Asia, lovely
So
sounding.
there's a whole bunch of those. As a, military man, how confident are you that most of these things will come through? And what do you think America is expecting from us?
So I look at it this way, that there is one grim reality, but two great opportunities. Now, what is the grim reality? Is India's very adverse strategic environment. I mean, very quickly, if you look at China, it is this 400-ship navy, J-36, million swarming of drones, 5G, it's, I mean, just fantastic. The J-36 is going to be inducted by 2032, when the Americans are going to induct their NGAD, the next generation air dominance platform, only in 2037. That's the way China is going. Now, to service or to attend to this grim reality, the two opportunities are: one, in the Trump administration, and here I would say, put it this way, there is a possibility that Trump will be very conditional and erratic. For example, we already know these G engines are not coming to the Tejas. Now, that is not innocent stuff. Though that kind of hardball Trump will only grow. For example, when it comes to defense sales, will he want those companies to come up in USA or in our defense corridors? We would want them to come up here. So these kind of things will have to be negotiated with him. The hope lies, if you go to his policy teams, if you follow Elbridge Colby, which could be the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy or something, he has been making this point for long, before Trump threw Europe under the bus, that we are fed up of these pathetic dependencies like Europe, who don't spend on defense. We value partners like India, autonomous strategic partners which stand up to the Chinese. Now, there is the hope, if that is serious policy, Trump. And if they value us, if they value the strategic relationship, then they would like a technologically enabled American military, because it would be in their interest. So I would say it's early days, pretty complicated. The other hope I see is that the Biden administration was, we want this to be done, but policy or yay. I think the Trump team will be more doers, pushers in kinds of deliveries.
Mr. Kumar, you're almost like an ultimate authority on this CHIPS program and all this kind of stuff, because you work very deeply and all that. I'd be very curious that, in India, all the major chip makers and everybody else, the Americans, top 10 American people already have offices in India. India is designing a whole bunch of chips, but we're not making it. Why is that? Where is the gap?
I'm pleased to be here and honored to be with this panel. In India, your question is, I think, very top right now, timely in terms of the manufacturing, CHIPS Act, PLI, and Korea having their own $100 billion investment. So all the countries are making the investment, but the design and manufacture, these are two different parts of the value chain of the semiconductor. So historically, the design side has come up because India has a lot of talent in terms of engineers we graduate who know how to design, and design is done in coding, for example, and Indian talent is really good at that, and the multinationals took advantage of that and they set up the office here. So we are designing, Indian engineers are designing the best processors in the world, the networking chips and everything. So TI, Intel, Broadcom, Marvell, Qualcomm, all these companies have offices here and the products are being designed here. But manufacturing, there are three or four axes we can look how a manufacturing sector comes up. So one is the demand. Even though design is being done here, but the biggest market for the chips is US customers. So those are the ones that buy. But they get assembled in Far East. So it used to be in China and still is in China and Taiwan. That region is assembling it. India is designing it and then America is consuming it. So the purse string is in America. So that's where the manufacturing decisions are being made, where to source. So so in terms of the assembly, so the China buys a lot of chips, but they get shipped over to US. So, and China has been very, I think, aggressive in terms of the manufacturing incentives, in terms of building up the infrastructure. So the second point is the infrastructure. To design, you need a building, you need computers, but to manufacture, infrastructure is required. That's availability of the power, that is the road, that is chemicals, gases, transportation. So you need a infrastructure, and China was really good at, and Taiwan was really good at providing the infrastructure and clean water, clean power. Third is the talent. So the manufacturing, you need a very specialized talent, mostly around device physics. So you really need PhDs. So this is very, very deep tech, and that talent, we have a lot of talent in terms of the coding, design, but manufacturing, which is very, very deep tech and hard tech, we don't have enough graduates. And this is not the problem with India also. This is a problem with US also. US doesn't have enough engineers, deep tech engineers to manufacture.
We've almost run out of time, so let me end with a quick question to all three of you in the same thing. I'd like you to sort of tell me that, when we look at India-US tech and trade relations, do you see it as a more or less positive thing, or do you think it's a wait and watch kind of a thing, or do you think that, we should be very careful about how we deal with the whole thing? And if you could just, qualify your answer with maybe one sentence explaining why.
I think clearly when there's a $500 billion target by 2030, so clearly it's in the upswing. And both leaders, which is Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, has both agreed to it. It's 4 times the size of the current trade, so clearly it's going to be in the uptick. Now, what will be the nature and composition is something we need to be watchful about. Who gains out of it, we need to be watchful about, but it's going to be in a positive trajectory overall.
That's good to hear, sir.
I'd just like to say one thing, taking off from what Sanjay was saying. See, the time has come now to take the technology bull by the horns, because technology is driving geopolitics and national security like never before. He was mentioning chips. Chips goes into everything from drones to hypersonics. Russia would not have been able to resurge in the conflict were it not for 200% support on chips from China. So we have, at one time we used to look at steel, aluminum. Today you have to look at your stockpiles of chips, quantum. So this dramatic change has to be made. And here, if you permit me just one moment, see, there are serious problems. Look at, after Atmanirbharta and defense, we suddenly had this drone defense company sprouting, 300 of them. Good news, but the tragedy is, out of the 12 components in the drone ecosystem, 11 are imported, and what is worse, all 11 are from China. So what Atmanirbharta? So we have to get really serious, and here the point is, that despite the highest number of STEM graduates, in the business technology spectrum, India is operating at the lowest end. I think Sanjay made this point. So we are simply aggregating. Our PSUs are aggregating other people's IPs. So we have to now hold to account our IITs, our universities, कि भाई आपके जो graduates हैं, वो deep technology में क्यों नहीं जा रहे हैं? IITians, why are they going for these pizza apps? Because China has worked on civil military fusion. जो वहाँ technology लगती है, वो military space पे भी नहीं लगती है. If we don't tackle these fundamentals, and see what is going to happen. He was talking of Indians designing the chip, it going into an American product, and he's going to sell it us at 10 times and then tell us precisionary is expensive. Actually, precisionary is cheap. So, this technology game is so complicated that you really have to go into the deeper aspects of it. But you have to, as I said, there's no more time. The technology bull has to be taken by the horns.